Good morning and welcome to LegalTech Live, the first episode of 2017. I'm Nick Rishwain, and with us today, and I should say that I've been in the legal tech community for about 7 years now, working for legal tech company in the expert witness space. Legal tech is a passion, and I found it enjoyable since things in legal tech are really seeming to take off in the last couple of years. With that, my co-host, Ivan Rakelin. Ivan, a little intro.
Yes, so my name is Ivan Rakelin. What I like to call myself a recovering lawyer, diplomat, and Green Beret turned angel investor and startup advisor who accidentally ran 50 miles once. But I don't practice law at this time. That's kind of my background in a nutshell, and I want to say good afternoon from where I'm sitting. And Nicole, thanks for coming along on this journey on Saturday morning or afternoon, wherever you're at. And I can see your puppy, your doggy in the background.
We love
Don't
that.
worry about
it. We love that. It adds to the interaction. And yes, with us today is Nicole Black. Nicole Black is an attorney and the legal tech evangelist at MyCase Inc. Her legal career spans nearly 2 decades, and she has extensive litigation experience. She was named an inaugural ABA Legal Rebel in 2009, and I'm a fan of the Legal Rebels blog as well, the ABA Legal Rebels blog. And she's also an inaugural Fast Case 50 in 2011. She is a well-known legal tech author, journalist, and speaker. You've written Computing for Lawyers and co-authored Social Media, The Next Frontier, both published by the American Bar Association. And additionally, you co-author Criminal Law in New York, a Thompson West treatise. You often speak at conferences about the intersection of law, mobile computing, and internet-based technology. Nicole, you've been in the legal tech evangelism longer than Ivan and I, but it seems that we all have some interest in that area. And tell us how you came to be a legal tech evangelist and author and so forth. Where did it all start?
Well, in 2005, I'd taken a short hiatus from the legal, from my career. I took about 2.5 years off. I'd been a public defender for about 4 years, and then I was with a civil litigation firm for about 4 years, and I was still doing criminal defense work then too. But I thought I should be happy, but I wasn't happy. You know, I had a nice office, I had a nice view, I liked the firm I was with, but it just wasn't the right fit. And so I decided to take a couple of years off and regroup. And in 2005, I hung a shingle, doing contract work for other lawyers, essentially a virtual shingle. And I did a website, and I had lunch with my cousin, who's a lawyer in town, who's always sort of been a mentor for me. And as we were walking away, after I told him my plans, he looked over his shoulder and he said, "You know, I heard about this thing called blogging on NPR this morning. You might want to check it out." I said, "Blogging?" And so I looked it up, and I love to write. I always have. So I started blogging in 2005, at the same time that I hung on my virtual shingle. And initially I was writing about, and that's my sui generis New York law blog. And initially I was writing about Court of Appeals decisions as they were handed down, New York Court of Appeals, stuff that would interest my target market, other lawyers. And then I started to write about blogging and how lawyers should blog. And then social media I joined all those platforms very early on and started to write about that. And I started writing articles for the Daily Record. And from that blog, Carolyn Elephant approached me. I'd met her. I went to a few tech conferences, and I met her, and she asked me to co-author Social Media for Lawyers. At that point, I was already working on the Criminal Law New York book, which I'd been asked to help co-author, take over as co-author. And then I pitched the Cloud Computing for Lawyers book to the ABA Publishing, to the editor that I had there, and that's where that book came from. And from that, after that book was published in 2012, I met the MyCase founders at LegalTech, and that's where I ended up with MyCase. So
you've been with MyCase for how long now?
It'll be 5 years in April. I was hired in April 2012. They were acquired in October that same year by Appfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And Appfolio, one thing that was really cool was Appfolio had its IPO a year and a half ago, and I was one of the 20 employees out of about 700 at the time that was flown out there for the IPO at NASDAQ, which was certainly not something I'd ever thought would be part of my career when I went to law school. So that was pretty cool. And that's like a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was cool.
Wow. Very cool. Ivan, any questions that come to mind for you?
No, right now I just wanted to say a couple of comments. No, definitely an impressive round, and obviously a treader in the space. To be a blogger back in 2005 is obviously, not only is it early on in general, but for the legal profession, I mean, you're essentially a decade before most people even know what a blog is in the legal community. They're just now learning what it is in 2015, what a blog is. So definitely impressive background. Again, like, I'm so glad to have you on here. As far as questions, no, I just wanted to hear the continuation of the story, because I think there's still
I'm really
the last 18 months you got to talk about.
Really excited to have you on, Nicole, because I followed you on multiple Twitter accounts, and I was thinking, Nicole's been doing this. Ivan and I started doing it in 2015.
We're amateur hours over here compared to Nicole.
You. So this is we're going through a little bit of the fanboy thing right now. But what? And I mean that kindly, I certainly mean that as a compliment. I do. But what do you see now that we're in 2017 and so many lawyers have failed to really take on blogging? They're trying to outsource it, and they're having such a difficult time with social media, unless they're folks like our friend Mitch Jackson, who is always at the forefront of these things. Very few attorneys really embrace legal technology. I can't say very few. We find it difficult in what we've talked about on this show, and in the startups we've talked to. We found that getting lawyers to adopt new technology is often difficult. What do you think the reason is behind that? Is it a cultural issue?
You took the question out of my mouth, my friend.
What's that?
You took the question that I wanted to ask.
I mean, I practiced law for almost a decade, full time. And that was before you had to really understand technology, right? You just had your computer and word processing, and that was the end of it. I was admitted to the bar in 96. So even back then, though, to stay on top of the changes in your practice area, to stay on top of your client, your caseload, and keep in contact with your clients, and network effectively and try to bring business in the door. That's a full-time job in and of itself. And then when you push this out to solo and small firm attorneys, which is sort of my focus, because that's my case's target market. And that's also, I've always been the most interested in what they do anyway. They have to learn how to run their practices, which is not something they were ever taught to do. And that in and of itself adds a lot to their workload. And then when you throw technology in there, which granted these days is part of running your practice, but tech changes so fast when you're in the middle of it. It's hard to stay on top of changes. And when you're busy running your practice, dealing with your clients, practicing law, staying on top of changes in your practice areas, it's overwhelming, I think. And they definitely have their work cut out for them. And once they get over that hump, though, and figure out how to use tech and get the right tools, it really can increase efficiencies and make it a lot easier for them to do their jobs. But that's that's a hurdle to get over, and it takes some time.
And there's a learning curve of the new technology as well. Right. It takes time. That takes time away from the practice in order to learn the thing that will make the practice more efficient.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
And did you see anything? So we're just coming off the biggest legal tech conference. Neither Ivan or I were able to attend. LegalTech New York, which is now Legal Week, and it was Legal Week 17. What's that?
Legal Week, the experience. It's got a whole new name now.
A whole new name on it. And neither of us were able to attend this year. I attended the Legal Week West Coast last year, or LegalTech West Coast last year. What were the items that you found most exciting? What do you think 2017 holds for legal tech? What are some of the technologies that you think are most exciting?
Well, I've attended that conference every year since, I want to say, 2009.
Okay.
Maybe 2008. And the reason I attend that conference is because everyone else is there. It's because it's a great way to kick the year off, get in touch with everybody, get a sense of what everyone else thinks is happening, what's trending, which companies they're talking about, what issue, which legal tech tools are going to be the talk of the year. So for me, that's what that conference is really all about. And I get a press pass and I walk around and I talk to a number of companies that interest me, which is sometimes a task at LegalTech because I'm not particularly interested in e-discovery. There's a lot of e-discovery at that particular conference. But I usually am able to find some companies that are doing some really interesting stuff and talk to the CEO. So, I mean, that's what I tend to get out of that conference. And this year, you know, there was a lot of talk about AI because that was the keynote kicked off the second machine age learning. It's I'm in the middle of that book. I can't remember the exact title, but the author of that book spoke. And my plane got in too late, so I missed the keynote, but I heard that it was really good. And I think it sort of set the tone for the conference. There's a lot of talk about AI. That's what I'd wanted to talk about when I was there anyway, so it worked out.
Right.
So I think that there's definitely a lot of talk about AI, but the actual implementation and finding ways to truly make it effective, I think, is going to be the trick in the future with AI.
Yeah, and that's Ivan. Did you? I've got a great interest in the AI aspect in legal tech and in general, and so I may be ahead of myself with legal tech AI because I really want it to take off, but I haven't seen it implemented. So I think it's just I think maybe I'm more interested in how cool it would be and how effective machine learning. How that could help the practice of law and how that could help with the massive amounts of data that law firms have at their fingertips these days. But I don't know how great the tools are out there. We've had a couple of people on who do some AI tools, but I don't know how exceptionally good or bad these tools might be. Ivan, are you seeing, Ivan, Nicole, are you seeing some really impressive AI legal tech companies, or some are they just is it just too early for us in AI for the use in law firms?
Well, I think I've actually seen some interesting examples. So when I was at ILTA last year, I talked to the founder of LawGeeks. He's an Israeli guy, and LawGeeks is software, and there's a couple of other products out there that are similar to it. It's software that, you know, learns, and it's unclear sometimes whether it's actually machine learning, AI, exactly what's going on in the backdrop, and whether it technically falls under AI. But I think what he's doing really does. It is software that allows you. It's for people that tend to review contracts on a regular basis, and it allows them to upload their contract, and then the software looks at all the different examples of that particular type of contract that it has available, cross-references them all, looks at that document, and then suggests what might be missing, what might need to be added, what might need to be reworded. And so then it learns every time it gets something new uploaded that falls under that particular category. So that, you know, you avoid the issue of having to put your contract next to the last one you wrote or read and, you know, cross-reference it, and the paragraphs are going to be out of order sometimes, and what's missing and what's not in there. And so it saves you all of that, and it also recommends things that other people have put in similar contracts that seem to pop up a lot. And so that's, I think, one of the most obvious applications of that. And one thing I thought was interesting at the show, what I tried to do was I did a Periscope interview of a couple different people about AI when I went to cover their companies, and just sort of, I didn't tell them I was going to do it, so they all had to sort of talk from the hip, if you will.
Right.
And then I'm going to include those in an article. You know, I tweeted them, and then I'm going to include them in an article and cross-reference them when I write my Above the Law article. But a lot of them did say that the trick with AI, there was a sort of a general theme from them, that the trick with AI is that right now, you have to have a very specific application and concept in mind when you apply it. You know, it's not broad enough to be just applied to the practice of law in general, or even just a specific practice area. It has to be almost applied to one part of that practice area, like contracts or, you know, other types of applications. But right now, documents are the most obvious application in the practice of law.
Yeah.
So right now you're saying the technology is applied in a disparate manner across the legal profession, is what you've seen based on the interactions you've had at the conferences, correct?
Well, what they all pointed out was that they believed that hasn't yet advanced to this level where you can just apply it to one practice area or one law practice even. You know, the AI has to have a very specific task when it's being programmed. The whatever tool you're developing, it's going to be for a very specific task, and then you can apply AI to that particular task. But, you know, it's the problem we run into with smart homes, right? So you have Alexa as a hub, but then there's all these other things that you can do with a smart home, but it's hard to fit them all into that hub. And like one tool does a great job.
Manually program every aspect of it, right?
Yeah. So, you know, it's one thing will turn your lights on and off really well, but, you know, then you got to get another tool to do, you know, to turn your security system on and off when you leave, or turn the heat up and down. And so then you have to have this hub to make them all work. And right now everyone's in legal. The only way that they're able to figure out things out from what a lot of people said was for one specific task, like turning on and off the lights, or the equivalent of that in legal. And there's not a real hub that pulls it all together yet.
Okay.
So let me take the second that Mitch is asking, and you'll take the first one, Nick. So Mitch is asking, what is the most interesting use of AI you've seen to date by lawyers, Nicole?
Well, there isn't a lot of true AI. You know, a lot of people call it AI, call it machine learning. Yeah, I think that what Law Geeks does is the closest I've seen to actual AI, because they talk about AI all the time at Legal Tech with e-discovery and predictive coding and document review. I mean, that's been going on for a long time, but I would argue most of that is not technically AI. The really interesting stuff I don't think is happening in the law yet. One of the most interesting examples, when I was out in Santa Barbara, I was talking to Klaus. He's the CTO of AppFolio, the company I work for. Klaus was, he launched GoToMeeting and GoToMyPC, which was then acquired by Citrix. And so he's one of the founders of AppFolio. And so he's been in this space for a really long time, and he's super smart about this stuff. And I was talking to him about AI, and he's the one that suggested I read the book I'm reading, which was the guy who spoke at the conference. But what he brought up is a really interesting example of AI, which is not in the legal space, but it's, I don't know if you've seen the Amazon shopping, that idea where you walk into a store, you put everything in a cart and you walk out and it just charges it to your card.
Yep.
And he said people have struggled with that idea for such a long time, and Amazon flipped it on its head and came up with a very different concept of it's like facial recognition. They don't quite explain exactly how they do it all, but facial recognition, and it follows you around. And then I don't know if they have, they may have scales on all the shelves. I'm not sure, but he said for them to actually make that work, and they have in like test stores, it's an incredible amount of AI and all of those things coming together, different types of applications of AI to make that actually work, so that you can walk out of the store and just have it charged without ever, you know, and not have it tied to your phone either. It's just somehow tied to the person as they walk in the store. So that's what he had said was one of the most impressive examples. And the way he explained it made it all sort of fit together for me, so that I sort of got that broad concept of putting all these different applications in one spot to make it all work, but it's very complex.
Yeah, and the folks that we've had on our show who are in AI, we've had a couple of chatbot related things, which isn't exactly AI, and the questions you ask to the chatbot have to be very specific. And then we've had the more of the use, the contract review type of startups. So that's really what we've seen so far. Mitch also asked, his first question here is, what technology will you be focusing on and recommending in 2017 to help lawyers build better relationships with their clients? So a little bit different than the AI question, but the client relation or customer relations management type of question.
Well, that's a little bit of I think that's a softball question.
Beach ball, huh? It's enormous.
Well, because from my perspective, the reason that I really liked MyCase when I first met these guys was because I just written my cloud computing book, and the one thing that all of those platforms lacked that MyCase had built into it from the ground up was a client portal. And the reason that resonated with me so much was because I had just refinanced my mortgage back then, because the rates had dropped so low. And I'd gone into my bank, and I sat there for an hour and a half. They took forever. They still hadn't finished copying my documents, and I got frustrated and I walked out. And someone had suggested you should look up Quicken Loans. They do refinancing online. And I looked up, I refinanced my home mortgage that first time around through Quicken Loans online. I uploaded documents. Whenever I had a question, someone answered it no matter what time of day or night. And it was this smooth, easy process. It wasn't a problem. And that was all through a client portal. And that's when I realized that, we all bank through those. And I knew that was going to be the future of interaction with clients, because they're coming to expect that outside of the legal field. And now almost all of our competitors also have client portals built into them. And with a bunch of different opinion, the ABA and Texas, there was one other one I just read, might have been DC, maybe Wyoming, I'm not sure, but 3 different ethics bars that I'm aware of so far have said that email is inherently unsecure. It used to be okay, but it's like a postcard going through the post office in pencil. So for particularly sensitive matters, lawyers need to think of other ways to communicate with their clients rather than sending things via email. And client portals are one of the best ways to do that. And it gives the clients control over, they can upload documents, they can download documents instead of calling you for it. They can see their schedule, they can send you messages, they can get information on their own time 24/7, without having to be stuck with your office hours, and playing phone tag. And so even though it's a form of CRM, it's not technically CRM, but I do think that that's the next stage of really client interaction, is having these client portals and using those to interact with your clients.
Excellent. That's good. It's like you said, it's a softball question, but I really think that's a great way to do it. The company that I've been working for, experts.com, I've been there over 6 years. We have been cloud-based the entire since 1995 when we went online, or 94. It's been you request a expert witness and we log it in your account, and you can go back and review your request. It's not that complicated, and I'm glad to see that people are doing that. You can go back and see the list of experts that were requested, and the communications that you've had between the experts can all be done right there. And we've had a hard time getting lawyers to use that. They'd rather get the list of the experts in email. And I'm not trying to pitch my company here. It's just the experience, really, is what it is. We've had difficulties having clients adopt and use that platform. So it's interesting that is still an ongoing issue, and that's what you recommend this year. We'll have another one from Mitch, because he's always got great questions. Is this gonna be a softball, Mitch? He says, no, this isn't a question, it's his comment. Private client portals, but the client's interest first, and create exemplary, and put the client's interest first, and create an exemplary client experience. In fact, in Mitch's, in a group that Mitch and I participate in this week, we had discussed, or last week we had discussed this item called Zip Whip, which allows you to text from your office number to your clients, because he says a lot of clients want to not receive communications via email, but they want to receive it via text. So you can do it texting from your own phone, but rather than giving out your own mobile phone, but rather than giving out your mobile phone number to them, it's coming from your office number. Simple, but puts the client first and communicates with them in however they want to receive that communication. Was there anything unrelated to AI that, because that seems to be what people are talking about nonstop in legal tech right now. Of course, they're talking about nonstop in a lot of areas. It's not just legal tech, but besides AI, was there anybody or any company that kind of it was a fairly simple or less complex issue that they were solving, but they were doing it in a really creative way? Any companies that stood out to you like that at Legal Week?
Well, one thing that I noticed last year that I'm seeing a continuation of this year is with, when in early 2008 to 2010, there were a few cloud-based practice management companies. And then it's like whack-a-mole. There's new companies that pop up and go away all the time. And now I'm seeing in a separate part of the cloud space, it started about last year, maybe the end of the year before, a bunch of different companies popped up that provide litigation case management in the cloud. So there's some confusion, some people call practice management case management, some people call it legal practice management, law practice management. And so these companies sort of blend in because they're calling themselves case management companies, but they're really not practice management. What they do is they manage litigation for trial teams. So they're really targeted at larger sized law firms to help the litigation teams where you have associates, where you have partners, where you have paralegals all working on one complex litigation matter. It helps them take all those documents, and some of them, like Relativity, which is an e-discovery company, is building this platform into it so that the e-discovery arm of their software talks to this litigation case management arm. And Evercrown was also at the show, and I talked to both of those companies. But it allows them to see who put this fact here from the deposition into the timeline, and who have an audit trail of who put what where and how it got there and where it came from. Was it from a deposition? Was it from a piece of another piece of evidence, from a document? And so it lets them track all of that. And the practice management software, while all of them have decent document management, they don't make those connections. And so this software allows these larger litigation teams to work on and track all of their work and prepare for everything right from the beginning stages of the client coming in with documents right through depositions and into trial. So I think that is an interesting trend I've been watching in the cloud space.
Excellent.
Software.
Excellent. Ivan, it looks like you've got a question for Nicole.
I think I'm going to ask my own question, if you don't mind.
Go
Nick.
for it.
So, Nicole, what are your predictions for coming up for 2017 in the legal space? Any disruptions that maybe a lot of people may not be aware of? And again, a follow-up, what are your focus areas in terms of projects for the rest of the year?
Disruption.
Let's start out with the first one.
I think the thing that's tough about legal is it's hard to disrupt it. It's lawyers are 2 to 5 years behind the technology curve, depending on what segment of the legal profession you're looking at. And I don't
know, maybe something like, do you see any changes in intellectual property laws, copyright, trademark, maybe, for example, because of the ease with which people can actually, record, live stream? Do you think that there will be any changes with that, or will it remain the same?
That's tough. IP is definitely not my focus, so I don't know if I'm necessarily going to be able to offer a lot of insight.
Maybe Mitch can probably answer that one better at a later date.
Yeah, but I mean, I think one thing that's due for an overhaul that I don't think is going to happen is I know I'm going to get the initials wrong. It's not the DCMA, it's the Act from 1986, the Computer
Digital Millennial Copyright Act, DMCA. Not from 86. That's
no.
later,
I think you're
90.
thinking about the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act.
Yeah, I think that is due for a revamp, and it's causing. It just came up again about. It's due for a revamp, and it's not going to happen under Trump, I don't think. But it just came up with like the rogue. They're going rogue with his tweets, and by using the state's. The park ranger's official account when they'd been told not to, and going rogue, did that constitute a federal crime? That's kind of crazy to me, sending out a couple tweets. It may have been ill-advised on behalf of that particular park ranger, but for that to constitute a federal crime is kind of crazy. But then there's other areas where, the government has incredible amounts of access without a warrant, because when that law was drafted, it was drafted with a technology that had been in there, existed way back when, and it's changed so much. And so right now, the feds have unfettered access to all sorts of information as long as it's has been stored for more than 90 days. Is that this? It's just kind of ridiculous that hasn't been changed to keep up with the changing technology. But you can understand why. They can access all sorts of stuff that they otherwise wouldn't be able to if it hadn't been digital. So why do they want to change it?
Right. And this is the act that they used to go out the young man who was, I think he was a Reddit founder, Schwartz.
Yeah, and then he committed suicide, right?
Yeah,
Later.
yeah, that was the active to go after him.
They do it all the time, and for me, that's the thing that concerns me the most about the technology and everybody communicating online, and it's less breaches and that type of thing, although those can sometimes clearly be an issue, but it's more the fact that it's just the laws have not kept up with the changes in technology, and the government has access to so much information now, and it's can be a little bit alarming. I'm more concerned with the government's access than, a hacker's access, quite frankly, but that may be the criminal defense lawyer in me coming through.
It could be, but that's okay. That's based on.
Is it the government's access, or is people putting information out publicly, and then so easy now to communicate?
That's certainly some of it. Some of it is people are just oversharing, but some of it is stuff that's intentionally meant to be private, like emails. They keep trying to access. Some of these warrants and stuff that they serve, the companies can't even, not any, they're FISA warrants, and the companies can't even, it's treason for them to say that the warrants have even been served on them. And then they have to decide how they're going to, walk this ethical line of what should they give, what can't they give, what are they supposed to do. And I think that it can be really difficult for Google and Facebook and Twitter, and they're all trying to sort of fight this battle behind the scenes in some ways. And it's the amount of information that they can get from these companies. And granted, when you use it, you do agree to let them get your geolocation data, right? But some of that information, like for the Occupy Wall Street, that was a big issue. There was a judge in Brooklyn, Matthew Schiaroni. I'm connected with him on social media now, but he took a stand and said that they couldn't access the geolocation data of one of the Occupy Wall Street people from Twitter. I can't recall the exact basis of his decision, but that was the first time that had come up, and they wanted it for the geolocation, not for his actual tweet, but to know where the guy who was charged with a crime was when he sent out the particular tweet, because that was relevant to the prosecution. There's a lot of information, and granted, when you sign up for these free services, you're giving stuff away, but I think that right now the government really takes advantage of the fact that the laws are so lax on that, or haven't kept up with the times.
Excellent. Excellent point. What I've seen. It's probably where I differentiate the most. We put out. Are you guys getting a lot of feedback? From me?
Yes. For some reason, there's some
feedback.
Yes. For some reason, there's some feedback going. And also from me.
Can you hear me? All right.
I can.
See that.
Yeah, I think it's from Nicole, maybe feedback audio.
Terrible feedback right now.
I'm not even sure. Can I mute mine? No, I can't.
If you can either mute yourself, or if you have headphones, it might actually help, Nicole.
Here, I'm gonna have to run upstairs real quick. But I can
Go for it.
It'll just take a second.
Go for it. Yeah.
All right. One second.
This is a great.
Go ahead and pause it. Is there an ability to pause, Nick?
No, I'll look for this spot and I'll cut it out and replay.
All right, so I'll do this to make it easy for you.
There you go. So next week.
Yeah, that's something we forgot. Probably to have headphones.
Yeah.
That's normally the.
Yeah, hey Mitch, what do I have planned today? This is my main plan. This, and I've got a crab feed to go to tonight. We're just talking about the weekend here, Nicole, while you're gone.
I'm going to the San Antonio Spurs game tonight.
That's right. I did see something on Instagram about you going to the Spurs tonight. So we'll cut out this little part here. I forget what my next question was going to be. I know I was going some.
Oh, my next question was going to be, what are your specific plans, Nicole, for the remainder of 2017? Was the second part of my question, or I guess I would call it a second question altogether.
Well, my focus now is always with my case, right? So I work for them, and so I know, our focus is, because I'm part of the My Case team, it's to grow My Case, make the, product even better to meet our customers' needs and help our customers succeed, right? So I don't have any books planned. I write articles for lots of outside sources. I write my Above the Law column. I have my Daily Record column. So I'm not writing any books. I speak a lot. We'll see what the speaking offers sort of roll in over time. So, we'll see what those end up being. But usually I speak anywhere from 8 to 14 times a year. It just depends on the year and what the offers are. So I mean, that's.
So you're not busy at all.
Not busy at all.
They pretty much doing nothing all year. Sarcasm injected now.
I just spend a lot of time, I write every day. I write like 600 to 1,000 words a day, one way or another, usually. Whether it's for the My Case blog, for Above the Law, for my Daily Record column, I write for Legal IT Pro. So I write a lot and I speak around that. And I get to travel a lot. I just got back from New York from the LegalTech, and I'll be in Chicago for Tech Show and probably out to California in the first quarter. I think probably. So I don't know.
So what are the biggest conferences other than the three you just mentioned in the legal tech space?
Well, those are my three favorites: Tech Show, ILTA, and LegalTech. And then I go out to LegalTech West Coast. I've been to that one once when I was asked to speak at. There's lots of other ones that. Evolve Law has some interesting things going on. They're smaller. A lot of the state bars have some, like I know Florida just had a sort of tech show, and I know one or two of the other state bars also have a tech show type of conference that's specific to their membership. So, but for me, it's really those big three. Those are the ones that I like the most, and that I find you have the most people. For me, it's all about networking when I go to those shows, and I like to go to the ones where most of the people are going to be, where I can really talk to everybody and get a sense of what's going on and what they're thinking and figure out what's happening. So
what's the next one that we need to attend? Which one did you say?
There's ABA Tech Show in Chicago. And that's a great one. That targets solo and small firms in particular. And then ILTA's in Vegas this year, and that's usually around the end of August. And that one's a slightly different, each of them has a different feel and a different set of attendees. That one's more knowledge management, and it's similar to what you see at LegalTech, but slightly different. But they're all fine in their own way.
Yeah. So we're coming up on about time here, Nicole. So I do want to ask, are there any projects that you're working on or that you'd like to share with the audience? You didn't say there. Did you say there's a new book coming, or you're not? Or you're
no? I think I'm done writing books at this point.
Okay.
Particular project. I don't think so.
No.
I mean, I don't have any large projects like a book or anything like that. It's mostly, I write my Above the Law articles, and I write for the Daily Record, and that gets sent out across the Dolian Media National Newswire. It gets picked up by other state bar journals, and I don't know. I mean, there's nothing. Maybe keep an eye on My Case. I mean, that's a lot of I devote a lot of attention helping with that in different ways. I advise on. They're thinking of new features. Sometimes I'll be the starting point for them just to get a sense of whether they want to validate it more and go into that. And I work with marketing a lot. And I mean, it's definitely, my life is very My Case focused these last few years. So.
Yeah. I will say this, I really do appreciate you taking some time on a Saturday afternoon to join us. I will say, in my experience, I was like, Nicole Black, I just read an article by her over on Above the Law, and is this the same Nicole Black? When early on, is this the same Nicole Black on Daily Record? Is this? And then you've got, like me, you've got a couple of Twitters, and I was like, I swear I was already following Nicole Black. Who's this other Nicole Black? And it was
she's the Gary V of the legal tech profession.
You can
or the
find
blogosphere.
Nicole Black online if you look. She's got plenty of content out there, and it's really well written content and informative. I really do appreciate you being here. How should we tell people to get a hold of you if they are interested? Is there a particular Twitter handle that you prefer that people follow you on or connect through?
My main Twitter handle is Nikki Black, NIKIBLACK at Nikki Black. You know, my email account that I use for public facing is nikki.black@mycase.com. So it's NIKI.BLACK at mycase.com. So that's another way to reach me. So.
And they can find you can find her profile on My Case website, and you can find her throughout Twitter. And
just got one more follower right there.
There you go.
There you go. And hey, Mitch, thanks for joining us, Mitch. Really appreciate the support and the good questions. Nikki, thanks again for being here today. And we'll wrap it up. You don't have to disappear right away in case Mitch wants to come and say hi, but I'll do the countdown. We'll close it up. And I want to thank everybody for being here for our first new episode in the new year of LegalTech Live. I'm Nick Rishwain here with my co-host
Ivan Rakelin, and I hope to see you and some of the listeners and viewers in Chicago if I can make it out there for the ABA Tech Conference.
And we're really grateful to our guest today, Nicole Black of My Case. You can find her at Nikki Black on Twitter, and you can email her at nikki.black@mycase.com. Thank you again, Nicole, for being here, and